Hey YouTube family, it's Dinko the Realtor, your Utah Realtor. Today we're going to be taking a look at when should you buy a house in Utah. If you're buying in the short term, in the long term, I'm going to go over all the data. I'm going to give you the data analysis information you're not going to be able to get anywhere else. First time to the YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button. You won't want to miss out on information that keeps coming. Now, this is the big kicker. Look at the amount of money that the US government has printed since 1980, when we went away from the gold standard in 1970. The thing is, can the government keep printing this money to keep us from seeing another great recession? That's the real kicker, because if they couldn't print this kind of money, if money had to be backed, and if real capitalism principles were in play, free market, where things that fail should be allowed to fail and there shouldn't be these bailouts, 100% we would see the great housing correction, the great recession, and maybe even a depression. But money just doesn't have any limits right now. So if money has no limits, we have to analyze data. We have to analyze what's going on so you can understand what's going on in the economy, in the housing market, and make that decision for yourself. But contact information is down below. I have people reaching out all the time, and we're strategizing if they're looking in the short run, long run. I have people that have been with me for over a year. They've reached out and they still haven't bought anything. I never push anybody to buy anything. I just keep giving out this information to make sure you make the financial decision you feel comfortable with. Now, if we take a look at that, though, right here, it's actually 33,800,000, right? Or 33,800,000,000. So if we go over here and we analyze it, it's showing 33,000,000,017. Well, it's actually 33.8. So we're almost at 34 trillion. I mean, just within months, within 3 months, we're going to print out another $1 trillion. I mean, money just isn't real anymore. So if we take a look at this, this is inventory. And we went over this in previous videos, so we're going to go quickly. When we started a year, the blue is 2023, the orange is 2022. And let me just remove myself off of this. So if we take a look, we started the year with so much more inventory. And yet they kept talking about inventory, being low inventory. It's because we didn't see those gains that we saw a year ago, where inventory was going from 3,000 to 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And it's like, oh my God, inventory tripled, it doubled, it quadrupled. And now you're not hearing that in the news. Well, let's analyze this data. And right here in July is when it actually flipped. So that's when we actually had negative inventory year over year. And if you can see, the blue line is now under 2022 limits. And we see that the inventory is now heading downwards. And that happens every single time. And actually, really, inventory peaks in August, September in normal markets, but it's actually been peaking in August or October here in 2022 and 2023. So the markets, kind of changed a little, but you see that there is that inventory. Now, what's going on here is interest rates. And if we follow the data, prices, if we don't see a recession, if we don't see unemployment going up, we could see a small uptick in the spring, just like we did this last spring. But right now, if we analyze, and here it is, actives. So we have 8,500 actives in December 14th of 2023 compared to 8,887 in 2022. Under contracts, though, you see that we're 3,200 compared to 4,000 in 2022. So under contracts are lower. Now, this is right here is actually going to show you, and this is what I went over in previous videos. Inventory is lower right now than it was a year ago, and especially when we're looking at entry-level homes. When we're looking at houses that are 2,000 square feet and under, there is definitely a bigger shortage right now than last year. And that's why we aren't seeing those prices just dropping, because people can't afford to upsize. So if we take a look here, withdrawals. So this is sellers that have taken their house off the market. We see that it was 1,900 on the 14th of December in 2022 compared to 1,500. You also have expireds and cancels. So people or sellers are taking their houses off the market at a lower rate than they did a year ago, yet inventory is still lower year over year. So that's indicating that, yes, we do have a little bit less of an inventory right now than we did same time a year ago. That's why the data, if we don't see a recession, if we don't see unemployment start ticking up at the beginning of the year, if we don't see some things break, and definitely there are things that can break, and we went over this in previous videos. I mean, credit card balances spiked in the third quarter to almost 1.1 trillion, which is a record. We've never crossed the $1 trillion mark, even prior to 0809, during 0809, and we've crossed that $1 trillion mark, and this was November 7th, right? So this was published November 7th, and I mean, after all of this holiday season, we're definitely going to be above 1.1 trillion. So again, if money is really fake, and it doesn't exist, and they can just, they found this printer, I guess, that you just put paper in it and it never runs out of ink and it never runs out of paper apparently, and it just continues to print. So again, if basic principles, if we had true economic principles in play, we would definitely be seeing a recession, and the student loans wouldn't be paused. That wouldn't be happening. Those would have resumed. They wouldn't have been delayed for a whole nother year. And that would have itself caused a whole big nightmare, right? So again, we're going to analyze a lot of this information. I'm going to give you all everything so you can make that decision. Because I know some people want to buy in the short term. Some people want to buy in the long term. Some people don't want to wait anymore. Hey, I'm going to give you an information. Even people that don't watch my YouTube videos, I mean, I have it all over my social media on Facebook, Instagram, but even people that don't watch that stuff, I still give them the information. And look, I had people that were hell-bent on buying a house. And once I gave them the information, they go, oh, whoa, I don't want to buy. And then there's people that follow me and they go, you know what, I do want to buy. So, hey, I'm giving the information. I don't care. I'm going to be doing this 10 years from today. I don't care if you buy a house today, next year, 10 years from today, whatever. I want you to make that decision that's comfortable for yourself. So you have all the information. Now, the 10-year, we see that the 10-year hit 5%, right here in the middle of October. And that's when interest rates were crossing the 8th percentile. Well, we see since the 10-year has dropped a whole 1%, so more than 1%. So now we know that interest rates are also going to be dropping. So if we take a look at what's going on with interest rates, we see on this chart that they're dropping. So the Mortgage News Daily, theirs is the blue one. The orange one is actually Freddie Mac. So Fannie and Freddie are the ones that back the loans. Mortgage Daily always has kind of the lower end, but I like the fact that they have this chart. So it shows you what happened here with interest rates. They skyrocketed to that 8th percentile and they've come down. So they have come down about about more than 1%. And that's why I'm saying interest rates are coming down, inventory is going down. And if we don't see that recession, fear mongering, people, have to buy. They've graduated, they've had a kid, it's time to be on their own, they're tired of renting, they don't want to rent, they're anti-renters, and people want to buy. They're kind of forced into that situation. So there is a chance we see that small uptick. So if you're looking to buy in a short run, right here, December, January, could be your best time to buy to get a deal. And of course, if the recession hits and if unemployment starts going up, then, and again, there are things that are indicating things like that could happen. I mean, right here, we went over this previously, right? Americans falling behind on auto loan payments at record pace. And then right here, if we take a look, repo companies predict a boom as consumers miss car payments. So we're not going to dissect this. I might in a future video. I don't want this to just, go on forever, but they're prepping for a boom in repo. So again, the economy hasn't settled, the housing market hasn't settled because the economy hasn't settled. So I'm never going to say, hey, everything is settled, go out there and buy. And if we look at interest rates here on Google, we see that the 30-year is 7.8%. We see that the FHA is 6.9%. So the 30-year fix, it's taking the averages of the two. Usually the conventional is not that much higher than the FHA, but if you take a look at their chart right here, you see how it went up here in October and then it has been coming down. So same thing, it's indicating above 8% on Google, and then it's indicating, in the 7 percentiles here in Google, whereas the Mortgage Daily is indicating it to be in the 6.5s. And this one's maybe a little bit more accurate. And then if we take a look here, the 10-year Treasury yields drop below 4% after the Fed signals rate cuts are ahead. So the Fed is not being hawkish, saying, hey, we might not do any rate cuts, or we might even do a rate hike one more time. So now the Fed is actually backing off that and indicating that, hey, there are rate cuts coming ahead. And it seems that the Fed, I didn't read the whole reports, I just read kind of summaries. It seems like they're indicating that they could cut the Fed rate 3 times next year. Now, that doesn't mean interest rates are going to go back to 2 or 3%. It just means that interest rates could maybe potentially be 5.5%, 6%, 6.5%, probably more like 5.5%, 6%. So, and then of course you can get a little bit better depending on the credit score and what's going on. So it's not like the interest rates are going to go back down to 2 and 3%. But the Fed is doing that. So that's why I'm saying, if you're looking in the short run, we don't see that recession. We don't see unemployment pick up. Right now is the best time. If you want to see how this plays out, it could be an additional 6 to 12 months. So really, what are you wanting to do, right? I mean, I had some buyers, all the time, I actually have buyers changing their mind. Some want to buy, some don't want to buy after I give them the information. And they said, you know what? We actually just want to wait it out. We're first-time home buyers. We're living with parents, and we're just going to wait a little bit and see what happens. And then I have people that are like, nope, I want to take advantage of it because I don't want to end up waiting a whole nother year, and I want to take advantage of it right now. And I've been knocking off prices. This year, the most I've done is I've knocked off a price upwards of $200,000 and got a free finished basement. So there are definitely deals to be made out there, and I negotiate everything. I mean, even houses that barely hit the market. And it's funny, the listing agents always want me to get on their side. Oh, you show your buyer that, that people are still buying, get them under contract. And I always try to act like I'm the friend with the agent, because I don't want to get into an argument with them, but I want the best thing for the buyer. So we're negotiating, and I'm negotiating on the buyer's behalf, and I'm still getting these deals, getting it knocked down, getting it knocked off, saying that my buyer is extremely educated, even though most of that information is coming from me. I'm saying that the buyer has all that information, that they're the smart person in this transaction. So everything that I can do to knock that price down, that's what I do. And let's see here, so I don't get lost. So this is what I want to show y'all, the conflicting information, right? So if you take a look at this article by the NAR, the National Association of Realtors, existing home sales receded 4.1% in October. So they went down, right? Existing home sales descended 4.1. I hate those words. I mean, why don't you just say decreased? But they descended 4.1% in October to a seasonally adjusted annual rate. So sales slumped 14% from a year ago. And then if we take a look at what's going on over here, we see that Redfin reports pending home sales rise to the highest level in a year. Whoa, what's going on? How can that just happen in a couple of weeks? Always read the fine print. And let me just zoom this one in a little so there we go. So if we take a look here, U.S. home sales rose 1% month over month in October to the highest level in 1 year. So home sales rising 1% year over or month over month is all of a sudden a boom. I mean, this is the stuff you have to watch for. And let me pull up the Excel sheet. So take a look at this. This is 2023 compared to 2022. Look at all these negatives, negative 29. This is less units being sold. And in, where is it? Right here in October, we saw that year over year it increased to 2%, right? So we see the sales increase slightly, and oh my God, it's a great time to buy. The housing market has stabilized, but how can that be better than all of these negatives? Plus, you're comparing one bad month to another bad month, because if we go to 2021 and we look at October, I mean, there was 4,400 sold. The same thing in October of 2019. If we take a look at November here, there was 4,200 compared to 3,700 in 2019. So if we take a look at it, that's, 2021 barely sold more houses than in 2019. 2020 was really the year where the most amount of homes were sold. So if we take a look at this, we haven't stabilized. I mean, we are negative. Look at that, 38, 38, 36, 37. So if we take a look and we compare it to 2021, which is pretty normal, to 2019, we see that it's mind-boggling, right? And then also right now, inventory, we went over this on a previous video, but we see that inventory is actually higher than it was in 2019, right? So in 2019, here it is, and then here it is in 2013. But they don't talk about that. They just keep talking about this housing shortage, but they don't say, hey, inventory is what it was in 2019. So the fear mongering is low inventory, interest rates drop, houses are going to go $100,000 above list price. Wow. I mean, inventory does not indicate that. And then if home prices go up $100,000 and interest rates are 5% or 4%, then we're going to have the same affordability issue that we have right now. So then if they're up $100,000, then sales are going to plummet down even more, and we're going to have the same affordability crisis. I mean, this is why you got to make decisions you feel comfortable with. Yes, prices are going to uptick here in the short run if we don't see a recession and if we don't see unemployment go up. But if we do, then they're going to continue dropping even into the spring. So it's just, how long do you want to wait? And you got to read this stuff, right? And they fell 4.8% from a year earlier. So even though they rose 1% month over month, they fell 4.8%. And, this is going national stuff. And, I'm not going to go look for, and then prices. This is another one I want to actually show y'all. So good thing I went back to this. So 540,000, we saw prices dropping here in October, but then they went up to 545,000, where the preliminary report here on December 14th, which is halfway through the month, and here comes Christmas. So this might be, pretty accurate. Maybe prices are going to be lower. We see it's 535,000. So no, prices are not going back up. Just like I was showing in that previous video, that what's happening is we have less of the homes, 2,000 square feet and under. We have less of those houses. And when we compare single family homes, that's what every single MLS, nationwide does. It's single family homes. They leave out the condos and townhomes. And when we do that, we see these prices dropping, and then the net listings, or where's the other one? Let's see. Right here, the 2,000 square feet. So if we take a look, right, there was 7,000 compared to 8,600 a year ago that were 2,000 square feet or smaller. And if we take a look at just November, right, there was 50 less. And then right here, if you take a look at 2019, there was 34,000 homes that sold compared to 27,000 in 2022 and 23,000 so far, but that was through November in 2023. So again, housing market hasn't stabilized. There's less of those smaller houses selling, which is making the prices also be higher because they're not part of the statistics, right? If we add 100 houses that are 2,000 square feet or less to the housing market, then the prices would be coming down because they would be part of the statistical data, right? So again, when we analyze everything as a whole, we see the numbers are all over the place. And this is why I'm saying the housing market hasn't stabilized. The economy hasn't stabilized. It all depends on your wait time, right? If you want something in the short run right now, if you want something in the long run, it might take a little bit more time. And again, this video seems like it's going to be going a little bit longer, but repos, all that. We went over this. Let me see right here. Pending home sales rise to the highest level in a year. And then again, it's 1%, 4.8%, right? And then if we take a look at the numbers, I mean, look at that. It's still below. Here's 2019, right? And it's still below 2019 levels. Of course, not as high as during the pandemic, but again, it's lower than it was in 2019. And if they're rising, they're still negative. When we take a look at this, right, under contracts are still lower than they were a year ago, 3,200 right now compared to 4,000 a year ago. And, we used to have 7,000, 8,000 under contract during the pandemic, right, during the peak. So we see that all of this stuff is changing, and zombie companies, right, zombie firms are filing for bankruptcy as Fed commits to higher rates. So these are companies that were essentially living on cheap debt, and they really weren't profitable. And I've said this in previous videos, and this is the last one, and then I'll keep bringing these videos up. But Smile Direct Club shuts down months after filing Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection. So what they do is they do that Invisalign, and they've served over 2 million people, I believe that the article says, and they've just never been able to turn a profit. And then I'm scrolling down here to show. So right here, Smile Direct Club filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy at the end of September. At the time, the company reported nearly $900 million in debt. On Friday, the company said it was unable to find a partner willing to bring in enough capital to keep the company afloat, right? So no more cheap money, no more, banks are more strict on lending the money, and when they do lend it, they lend it at a higher interest rate, and these companies can't do that. Remember, I said only 5% of tech companies are actually able to turn a profit that are valued at $1 billion or more. So the data is all over the place. It all just depends. If you want to take advantage right now, December, January, probably your best bet, unless we see unemployment or that recession hit at the beginning of the year. And then if you're trying to kind of wait to see how these things play out, it could be an additional 6-month to 12-month long wait. And I'm going to keep bringing you this information. Give me a call. My contact information is down below. If you want a game plan, I'll give you all the information. And like I said, I don't care if you want to buy this year, next year, 10 years from today, because I'm going to be doing this forever. And I'm going to keep giving you this information. And until next time, have a great day or night whenever you're watching this.